consecutive component. I, on my own motion, enter a not guilty in case number 9VA029383, People versus James Wilson. I think that this is the fourth case on the docket. At any rate, let's move along here. Let's move to the case on the docket. That is the case of the People versus Armando Salinas Valle. Case number 9VA029976, People.
I'm going to change that mock exam for another one, okay? So here we go, another one.
Consecutive. In the matter of Raul Salgado, case number 0VA282819. The defendant is present along with his counsel, Thomas Nibblers. People represented by Kathy Jovac. The jury is also present. So, we are ready to proceed. People, please, you may resume with the examination of Mario Cabrera. Let's state for the record that Mr. Cabrera is duly sworn. People, proceed. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cabrera, before the break, we were talking about the car that had recently parked outside of the deceased victim's home. Do you recall that, sir?
Sí.
Could you please refresh our recollection by stating for the record what type of car did you see the evening of August 10th, 2002 at approximately 6 p.m.?
Era un automóvil de color azul, marca Toyota Camry del año. Como le decía hoy por la mañana, el automóvil era tan nuevo que ni siquiera tenía las placas de circulación.
Who was the driver of the car? No.
No lo conocía en ese entonces. Después de ver los programas de noticias me enteré quién era el conductor.
Minute, sir. Are you telling the court that you did see the driver of the car, but did not know who he or she was?
Yo no lo conocía. Después de ver su foto en el noticiero hispano, me di cuenta de quién era él. Además le recuerdo que debajo de la foto del señor estaba escrito su nombre.
Who was that person?
El señor que está sentado a la derecha del abogado, ese señor que trae puesto una playera azul.
Identifying the defendant, Your Honor. So what did the defendant do right after he parked his car outside the residence of Carla and Malcolm Morales?
Yo lo estaba viendo desde mi casa, que está enfrente de la casa de los Morales. Él no me había visto. Él bajó con lo que parecía ser una escopeta, entró a la casa por la puerta de atrás y ya no supe nada más de él hasta que salió de la casa de los Morales.
When you saw him again, what was he doing?
Salió deprisa, traía la escopeta en la mano. En ese momento le aseguro que traía una escopeta porque parece ser que la había desenvuelto adentro de la casa y que salió con cierto apuro.
What did you see him doing?
Salió medio ensangrentado. Él se subió a su automóvil Camry y miró de un lado al otro. Huyó del lugar a toda velocidad.
Where was all this happening?
oeste de Los Ángeles.
May the court take judicial notice that the city of East Los Angeles is in the county of Los Angeles. So taken. What did you do right after the defendant took off at high speed?
Curiosidad, le confieso que tuve curiosidad y decidí ir a la casa del ahora occiso a ver qué había sucedido.
What did you do? Strike that. Did you enter the decedent's house or did you ring the bell? Or what?
Miré por la ventana lateral que da al oeste. Pude ver un cuadro desolador.
What did you see, sir?
Vi el cuerpo de Mark tendido en el piso, con un charco de sangre alrededor, totalmente apuñalado y con heridas hasta en la cara.
Could you please describe to the court the positioning of the body and what was next to it? If you recall.
Como le dije recientemente, el cuerpo estaba totalmente ensangrentado, lleno de heridas punzocortantes. El cuerpo estaba boca arriba mirando hacia el este. Es decir, la cabeza del occiso estaba en dirección este, mirando hacia la puerta de entrada. En lo que respecta a lo que había alrededor del cuerpo, yo pude ver un charco de sangre y un objeto contundente.
What was that blunt instrument? Could you be more specific?
Era un objeto contundente de color gris. Parecía ser una escultura. No pude descifrar qué tipo de escultura, pero le aseguro que era una escultura de un grosor de unos 50 centímetros y tenía una altura de unos 75 centímetros.
It appears that you did have a good look at it, sir. The court may be wondering, how is it that this witness is able to recall even the dimensions of the blunt instrument?
Esa escultura se la había regalado mi prima hermana y se la entregó en mi propia casa. Mi prima hermana es amiga íntima de él. Yo le aseguro que era la misma escultura.
I'm glad you cleared that up. Now, let's move on to what happened after you saw the deceased victim on the floor. What did you do then?
Pues ahí sí que llamé a la policía. Corrí hacia mi casa y llamé al 911.
Did they arrive after you called?
En cuestión de minutos. Creo que deben haber tardado 5 minutos. Me sorprendió lo rápido que llegaron.
What did the police do right after they arrived? That. Did you meet the police officer at the scene of the crime? Or did you remain in your home?
Yo los estaba esperando en la puerta de la casa del occiso. La policía me hizo varias preguntas, como qué relación tenía con el occiso, si había visto algo y otras preguntas de rigor. Yo quería entrar para ver si él estaba aún vivo. Me parecía difícil, pero la esperanza es lo único que se pierde.
So, you entered the house with the officers?
No, ellos no me dejaron entrar. Ellos acordonaron el lugar con la cinta amarilla y no permitieron pasar. De hecho, me aclararon que si entraba podría llegar a ser procesado por interferir con una investigación policial.
Finally, sir, did you report to the police everything you witnessed?
Todo. Les dije todo lo que le acabo de decir a todos ustedes.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, I have no more questions. End of the consecutive. Simultaneous component. Mr. James King, yesterday we were talking about the weapons found in a raid the agents of the FBI carried out at the residence of the defendant in this matter. Mr. Jose Ugarte, I asked you about your participation in this raid, and you answered, and I am quoting, "I was a member of the team who participated in the search and seizure of weapons and counterfeited money. I was in charge of identifying the weapons and their corresponding parts, and so forth." Do you remember testifying that, sir? Yes, sir. What type of weapons were found during the search and seizure of the building located at 2905 4th Street in the city of New York? We found several types of firearms during the search and seizure of the building just mentioned.
Okay, so we don't want to get into the weapons part because it's very difficult, and that's not something that comes out necessarily in your state examination. What we do want to look at is some terminology that was used. This idea, like make the court take judicial notice, make the court take judicial notice. Made the court take judicial notice. This is a very common expression that you will hear in court quite often. And the transfer into Spanish is puede el juez reconocer de oficio. And usually there is more coming after that. In this case, it was made the court take judicial notice that the city of East Los Angeles is in the county of Los Angeles. So the transfer should be, puede el juez reconocer de oficio que la ciudad del este de Los Ángeles está en el condado de Los Ángeles. And what it really means is that, you know, everything has to be in court, particularly in a trial or in a preliminary hearing. You have to show everything that you introduce as evidence, right? And that's critical. You have to somehow show everything. The problem with this is that the question is, where was the crime committed, or where did you see the victim, or whatever the case is. And the expectation is that they will use that the witness will use the word county of Los Angeles. Why? Because the district attorney is the jurisdiction that the district attorney has is county jurisdiction. So it's county of Los Angeles. Could be county of Orange County, county of whatever. And what happens is that the judge has to hear that the crime was committed in the jurisdiction where the judge is actually presiding. And the judge is presiding in the county of Los Angeles. So they are expecting the word county of Los Angeles from the witness, so that that can prove that the judge does have the jurisdiction. But quite often when people ask, you know, when they are asked, where did you find the victim, where was the crime committed, they're going to answer by the name of a city, if at all. Sometimes they only answer, you know, the street number or the street, in which case the attorney will say, you know, in what city, and they will hear the city. Now, the attorney, that's not sufficient, right? What they want to hear from the witness is county of Los Angeles. So sometimes the attorney will say, in what county is that city? And the people don't know. So what happens here is that everybody knows here in Los Angeles that East Los Angeles is in the county of Los Angeles. And therefore, there is no need to show proof to that effect. And the way that this works is by using this expression that says, may the court take judicial notice that the city of East LA is in the county of Los Angeles. It's like saying the judge, look, judge, everybody knows this. Can you kind of confirm this for the record? And the answer to that question will be so taken. And the transfer in Spanish is a little bit more difficult. It is así queda reconocido. So this is a typical line, and this should be, you should be aware of this expression, because it's a very difficult legal expression that is difficult to transfer into the opposite language, to take judicial notice, right? So that's one thing that we would like to discuss in terms of some of the vocabulary that was used here. When it comes to weapons, you have to keep in mind of the following. Weapons son armas. Firearms, armas de fuego. And, arma de fuego, a typical example is anything that fires a shot. It could be a gun, it could be I don't know. Or it could also be a shotgun, right? Escopeta, escopeta, which was used also, shotgun. So you may say, well, what is the difference? Well, the weapon could be a firearm, or it could be what is called as a bladed weapon. And a bladed weapon is what we call in Spanish arma blanca. Un arma blanca, o también se conoce como, let me just write it here, arma punzocortante, is anything that has an edge that you can stab someone by using it. So it could be it could be a lot of different things. So it's kind of a common mistake for people to transfer weapons as arma de fuego. And it really isn't. It is definitely arma, period, or armas in the case of plural. Firearm is arma de fuego because a weapon includes firearms and includes bladed weapons. So las armas incluyen las armas de fuego y las armas blancas. Or if you don't want to use arma blanca, you can say arma punzocortante. So those are important things because they do change. They change the meaning of the original, so you cannot confuse them in any way or manner, right? Now, they use at one point, you may or may not remember this, the term probable cause, motivo fundado. And I'm discussing terms that you maybe don't have in your vocabulary, because this one, I believe we don't have it included in the vocabulary. And motivo fundado really means a reason for the police to arrest somebody, or not even to arrest, sometimes to even pull someone over. So why did you pull over this defendant while he was driving? Is it because he was driving a very beat up car, or not a very expensive car in a very expensive neighborhood, or maybe the opposite? Thinking that maybe this guy is a drug dealer or God knows what. Well, you can't just really stop the person because of profiling, right? And therefore, you got to show proof to the court why that happened, right? And that's called probable cause. So it's quite often that you will hear the attorneys ask questions to the police officer as to what was the probable cause of this arrest. ¿Cuál es el motivo fundado para este arresto? And that's what it really means. So those are kind of interesting terms that are critical, again, in criminal matters. If you don't know probable cause, you got a real problem. In fact, when a judge is asked, when an attorney goes to the judge to ask the judge to issue any order, such as a search and seizure, a search order, search warrant, or a warrant for an arrest, any type of order, the judge is going to ask first to the police officer the probable cause statement, que es la declaración de motivo fundado. And that probable cause statement is a written thing that has been written by the officer who's asking for that warrant. And it's going to clearly indicate why and what's the evidence for the defendant, for the attorney to request a warrant against that defendant or that individual. Okay, good. Now we're going to do one more practice and then we'll finish. This is going to be a consecutive. So we're going to go back to consecutive now. And it's going to be a consecutive. I just want to warn you that this is a consecutive that deals a lot with a deposition. So you can think of it as being this is going to be typical what a deposition is about, okay? He has a few elements that are very similar to a deposition. Deposition, which is declaración jurada verbal, is what you will end up doing if you pass your exam and decide to work for interpreting agencies. You will be doing a lot of depositions. It's a deposition maybe in a car accident, a deposition in a workers' compensation case, a deposition in a copyright violation. I mean, there are so many different types of depositions that you can participate in. And the depositions take place at an attorney's office. It's rather informal, the setting is, but the outcome of that deposition, which is transcribed, will become part of the evidence. And in the trial, if they cannot find that witness that was deposed, then they are going to have someone read the deposition from this witness. If they can find the witness, or if the witness is willing to testify, they're going to bring the witness to testify and ask questions similar to the questions that were asked in that deposition in order to find out if the witness is either lying now or was lying before in the deposition. So it kind of determines the credibility of the witness. This is typically what happens in civil matters. So we're going to do a consecutive that kind of resembles a typical deposition. Okay, so this is going to be consecutive. It's going to start in about 15 seconds.